位朋友，大家下午好！欢迎各位参加由 Mentoring 蒙科和欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 联合主办的100场导师技术在线论坛。今天是我们的第46场，由来自英国的 Tessa Dodwell 女士主讲。她今天给我们带来的话题跟导师辅导有关，具体是如何解决导师辅导计划以及导师辅导关系中遇到的难题。首先，我们来简单认识一下我们今天的演讲嘉宾。Tessa 女士，她曾经有数十年的物流行业高管经历，后来呢转型成为了导师和教练。她获得了牛津布鲁克斯大学的导师与教练学硕士学位，同时是 EMCC 认证的大师级导师、NLP 大师级从业者。他还创办了一家公司叫 North52，这家公司是专注于领导力发展、高管培训以及导师和教练的发展。今天活动的主办方是欧洲导师教练协会 EMCC 与蒙科。EMCC 是总部设在比利时布鲁塞尔的，专门为导师、教练和督导提供国际资格认证的非营利性组织。蒙科源自1981年，是企业导师技术与组织隐性知识管理领域的全球知名教育咨询品牌。蒙科的总部也是在比利时布鲁塞尔，在全球有近600名专业顾问，在41个国家和地区为各类组织机构提供隐性知识萃取和企业导师传承相结合的培训与咨询服务。蒙科中国则专注于在国内本土市场开展企业导师制以及组织隐性知识管理的培训和咨询。我们是 EMCC 目前受证的中国唯一导师服务机构，也是 EMCC 认证的导师课程服务提供商。我们也是国际职业导师协会在中国的独家授权合作伙伴。那接下来我们就把今天的舞台交给我们的演讲嘉宾。Now let's warmly welcome Ms. Tessa Dodwell.
Thank you very much for that introduction and for inviting me to talk to you as part of the EMCC 100 webinars in China. I'm very delighted to be joining you today. I'm going to talk to you about tricky situations that might occur when mentoring. My name is Tessa Dodwell and I work for a company called North52. We've got many global clients, but we are based in the UK. I'm currently working with my two colleagues, Benita and Caroline, and we all work as executive coaches, but we all have our different specialisms. I specialise in mentoring, working with both causes and corporate clients. Benita and Caroline work on leadership development, and we all have at least a master's in coaching and mentoring, plus we are all trained supervisors. So the plan over the next 30 to 40 minutes is to look more deeply at potential tricky situations that could take place within either a mentoring scheme or within a mentoring partnership. And I'll be using example case studies to illustrate situations that could arise and how these could be addressed, both proactively and in the moment. When we run our mentoring webinars, tricky situations is one of the most popular sections, and it often prompts deep thinking and great questions. So what do we mean when we talk about tricky situations? We are referring to problems, concerns, or issues that could arise in a mentoring scheme or partnership. And why is it important that we look at these? The intention is not to scare you, but to prepare you. By understanding what could happen, you can be aware of options to resolve or prevent the tricky situation. You will see as we run through that many of the issues can be prevented with adequate preparation. We're going to look first at issues that may arise within a mentoring scheme. So we're going to do this assuming a typical design for a mentoring scheme. In our typical scheme, we would expect to have an individual or team responsible for designing and implementing the programme. In the design phase, we would expect some planning and logistics, but also some consideration of the purpose, the scope, the structure, and the process, plus some thinking about how the scheme would be communicated. Next, the participants would be selected. Scheme approaches do vary. Some use an application process, others request or require participation. Some schemes, especially those with a specific purpose, would typically specify their criteria. This could be for mentees, for mentors, or both. Matching happens next, with the methodology varying from match self-selection at one end to a rigorous, onerous committee process at the other. Training varies greatly in terms of content, who delivers this, and who is included. In larger companies, we typically see training in batches or cohorts. And then after training, the mentoring partnerships would begin. Typically, these would run for about 12 months. We'll look at these in a bit more detail later on. And finally, this typical scheme includes an ongoing review process so that improvements can be identified and implemented. So I've chosen 6 typical issues that we see regularly in mentoring schemes, and we're going to now look at each of these 6 in turn. Issue 1. Lack of scheme support. The first main reason that schemes are not sustained is that there is a lack of scheme support. There are 2 types of vital scheme support. Firstly, senior leadership support. This helps to elevate the scheme's importance and focus. Having senior level support provides participants with clear permission to take part and to manage it as one of the business priorities. Without this leadership support, participants might struggle to get line manager approval to take part, and if there is insufficient senior focus, the business may not perceive it as a priority, and with time it may naturally become deprioritized. Secondly, the scheme needs support from an operational lead who can manage the process, driving each cohort through to the next stage and keeping the scheme momentum going. If left without a central driver, many schemes falter as there's no one person holding the participants to account, ensuring their training is attended and making sure reviews are written and that any partnership issues are resolved. Issue 2, poor scheme design. The second reason that schemes run into problems is the way they've been designed. Schemes that are set up without clear objectives will be difficult to measure against any success criteria. Without the purpose specified, the scheme cannot be declared a success. If a purpose is unclear, then people may be less likely to invest their time, as return on their time investment in terms of value and purpose is not understood. To incentivize participation, both mentors and mentees value understanding what they're committing to in terms of time and effort. The process is unclear. It is difficult for participants to understand the scale of their commitment. And in the absence of this information, many may decline to get involved. Moving on from the design phase, we'll now look at selection and matching. So issue 3, poor selection process. For each relationship, there are 2 partners to select, a mentor and a mentee. With regard to mentors, what criteria are being used to identify someone as achieving that mentor status? Is it their seniority? Is it their qualifications? Is it mentee need? Without clearly stating the reasoning behind the selection process, mentors can assume the reasoning and may not put themselves forward to take part. With mentees, why should one person be offered a development opportunity and not another? Setting up mentoring schemes can alienate non-participants. I've seen mentoring schemes that are offered to high potential individuals, but the criteria used to determine who was considered high potential was not clear. So employees who thought they were talented and felt deserving of a mentor became demotivated. So it's important to note that people outside of the scheme can also be impacted by poor scheme design. Issue 4. Poor matching process. Different schemes have different processes. Some mentoring schemes invest very little thought into matching and create matches ignoring any links to current or past line managers, which can of course cause issues. We would always recommend that line management and mentoring partnerships are kept separate. A level of thought is recommended, and matches based on mentees' needs appear to be the most successful. Other schemes use technology for matching. Algorithms, however, are only as good as the data they are fed with. I've seen algorithms make unsuitable matches for mentoring partnerships, for example, where there was a history of conflict at work, or where the match had been in a prior or ongoing personal relationship. So if using technology, it's always worth including a human verification process in addition. Some mentoring programs allow mentees or mentors to self-select their partner. Although there is little research on this process, self-selectors tend to use a more crude method for selection, like convenience or seniority. I know of one mentoring scheme for female talent within a male-dominated workspace, and there was just one female partner. As the most senior person, the mentees, all female, all wanted to be matched with this female partner. This was clearly not practical or desirable for the mentor. So when mentors are in short supply, designing an expected endpoint can help a mentor serve multiple cohorts of mentees more easily. I've also seen matching become a time-consuming, onerous process. Several members of a committee were selected, all of whom knew the scheme participants. They discussed the needs, the personality and the character of the mentee, plus the experience, the skills and the psychological profile of the mentor. Although this depth of thinking was admirable, it was not a sustainable method. As the program grew, the committee did not know all the participants. So the committee grew to compensate, and each matching committee then took several days per cohort to complete. So the key to matching is having some depth of thinking about the matching needs of the mentee with the skills of the mentor, but to be mindful about key present and past relationships, and to offer both parties the opportunity to swap if the fit is not working. Issue 5, inadequate training. One of the key steps in a successful mentoring scheme is the training of the participants. The content of the training as a minimum would cover roles and responsibilities, contracting, the stages of the mentoring process, and training in key mentor skills like listening, questioning, and guiding. At North 52, we start with this content as a base and then tailor the training to ensure it meets the purpose of the scheme, the needs of the participants, and includes an appreciation of their organisational context. We've often seen people drop out of the scheme after attending the training, as they realise the effort and commitment involved is too much given their current workload. Schemes see this as an advantage and feedback that they would rather lose participants early on before the mentoring is started rather than partway through a relationship. Most schemes focus only on training the mentors, but we recommend training both mentors and mentees. We support David Clutterbuck's findings that the success of a mentoring partnership is doubled when both mentors and mentees are trained. For mentees, it's less about training them in skills, and it's more about familiarization with the process so that expectations are set and goals thought through in advance. Issue 6, the scheme is not developed. The last mentoring scheme issue we'll consider is when the scheme does not adapt to feedback, so it fails to grow and develop. To demonstrate scheme success, having a robust and regular measurement process is critical, but many schemes omit this element. Ideally, schemes should offer participants and non-participants an opportunity to feedback on how the mentoring scheme has been perceived by the business. We are often called in to evaluate schemes that have gone off target. We'll start by performing an in-depth audit process to look at scheme design and processes, as well as interview the participants. Mentees, mentors, line managers, and leadership are all in a position to comment on the success of a scheme and to identify any areas for improvement. Rather than using external evaluation, schemes often benefit from having someone responsible for identifying those issues and implementing scheme amendments to close any identified gaps. So for mentoring schemes, most of the issues we have discussed can be proactively managed in the design phase by having a scheme with leadership advocates and operational drivers, a design that has carefully considered the relevant key elements, a fair, clear selection process, a considered but not onerous matching process, training of relevance delivered to both mentors and mentees, and an opportunity for all to influence future iterations of the scheme. So that brings our look at tricky situations in mentoring schemes to a close. We're now going to look at tricky situations that might arise in your mentoring partnership. For the purposes of illustration, we're assuming a 4-phase relationship between mentee and mentor that starts with contract setting and rapport building. Then, as the relationship develops, psychological safety is created and trust is built to create a mature partnership, which finally comes to a close in phase 4. We're now going to look at the following 6 common issues that could occur in a mentoring partnership. Issue 1, ignoring the ground rules. The start of the relationship is a really important phase. At this stage, we encourage establishing the ground rules and recommend doing this by setting up a mentor-mentee contract. The contract helps to clarify the roles and responsibilities, plus what happens if either party needs to cancel. Having the contract helps prevent any misunderstandings. But if no contract exists, either party may assume the other is responsible, which can result in a sort of stalemate of inactivity. Whatever is established as the ground rules, then sticking to these consistently helps build trust. If a ground rule is broken, it takes longer to rebuild trust, and for some, regaining trust when it is broken is impossible. One of the most important ground rules to maintain is that of confidentiality. So clarifying who can be spoken to and when is a vital conversation to have at the early stages, the contracting stages. I remember hearing one mentee's experience when she was being lined up for promotion and had become pregnant. She wasn't sure how to raise the topic with her male line manager. The mentee chose to confide in her female mentor, who was thereby aware of her pregnancy before her line manager. The mentor had to carefully protect their confidential conversation until the line manager was made aware. This allowed the mentee to discuss with her mentor how to approach the tricky situation, so she felt confident in how to raise the topic with her line manager. So how do you manage things when ground rules are broken? Well, we recommend an open mentor-mentee discussion where both people explain their perception of what has happened and the impact of the rule break for them. If relations are strained, then it is useful to get a third independent facilitator to guide the conversation. As part of the discussion, both parties can explore how they feel about continuing with the mentoring. It is possible the relationship can get back on track with a new contractual agreement, but for many, broken trust is hard to come back from. Issue 2, unrealistic expectations. The second issue, which commonly occurs at the early stages, is a misalignment of expectations. The unrealistic expectations could originate from either party. Expectations might be set by prior experience, scheme communication, or insight into another scheme. If communication about this scheme or partnership is not clearly stated at the start, then there is room for misperceptions. Often the partnership establishes early on the mentoring goal or objective. If this goal is not set, then the mentoring may have no focus. It cannot easily be evaluated, and it's difficult to understand when the work is complete. Some mentees are very ambitious, and I've had some who wanted to progress to CEO within a very small time frame. Although I recognise this is not impossible, I challenge the goal's realism given their particular circumstances. So when an ambitious goal is set, it's helpful if the mentee can provide evidence to support the realism of their plans. Watching mentor assumptions is important about expectations as well. I can remember one of my mentees that I had early on. Most of the mentees that I'd had up until that point were keen to progress in their careers. So my language assumed that this was the case here. But actually, this mentee had a difficult situation at home. And what they wanted to do was to actually be demoted so that they could support their family, not to progress in their career. So having a goals and expectations conversation early on means that if expectations for either party are unrealistic, an open discussion can take place and those expectations can be reset. Issue 3, relationship breakdown. One of the commonest issues is that there is a breakdown in the relationship, and there can be many causes of this. The first one I'd like to discuss is dependency. This is when the mentee approaches the mentoring relationship, seeking continual support and reassurance, and the mentor allows this situation to develop. Our hope is that mentoring enables and empowers the mentee to think and act for themselves, rather than the mentee seeking continual guidance from the mentor. We work with mentors that mentor men in prison, and dependency is often a feature of these mentoring partnerships. So we use case studies in the training so that this dependency situation is recognised and options to resolve this are understood early on. We also encourage having a marked end to the relationship, as this can also reduce dependency. The nature of the relationship changes partway through the relationship. For example, the mentor becomes the mentee's boss, then this should prompt a relationship review and even a reassignment. The relationship could falter for other reasons like incompatibility or a change in the dynamic. Crucially, this only becomes a problem if neither party declares the discomfort, so the relationship continues and it's below expectations for both parties involved. We recommend that schemes build in regular reviews where mentees and mentors are spoken to individually so that participants have the opportunity to declare any issues with incompatibility. Many mentoring relationships take place over a year or longer in length, which means that either party could enter a new phase of their lives, which moves their focus away from the mentoring partnership. Typically, we've seen this with promotions, business reorganizations, or someone becoming a carer. This can divert either participant's energy or focus. And that can mean that meetings start to get cancelled and the partnership starts to disintegrate. Once this situation is noticed, then it is recommended that an open and honest conversation takes place between the mentor and the mentee to see if they can understand why the relationship has changed and seek to work things through together. Sometimes this works best as a facilitated discussion with an independent observer to help guide that conversation. Ideally, the scheme has an option to rematch if either party feels the relationship is still not working. Issue 4, low commitment. When we've been working with investment bankers, one of their commonest issues is time commitment. We discuss this within the training so that they can prepare for the commitment required and think through how they will manage prioritizing commitments. We really emphasize the importance of protecting the mentoring time as much as possible. And if someone cannot commit, maybe this is not the right time for them to take this mentoring role on. Simply booking all the dates up front is one approach, but for both parties to openly discuss how they will manage the time commitment and agree their own tactic is usually the best way forward. Issue 5, no support. We work with many mentors who are mentoring for their first time, and they are nervous about the responsibility of this new role. It can therefore be really helpful having someone who is an experienced mentor running the scheme so they can provide participants with essential support when questions arise. Some schemes also have external supervisors who can be approached to facilitate difficult discussions should they arise. Without supervision, difficult relationships can quickly disintegrate. We've worked with some schemes where a community of practice is developed with peers, so the mentors meet regularly and the mentees meet regularly. This provides a forum for discussion and support, which many find useful, but typically these communities still seek supervision, guidance on issues. Some mentoring relationships where strong trust develops tackle deep personal topics. As a mentor, it is not their role to be a counsellor. So it's important for mentors to be really clear about how to handle conversations if a mental health issue arises. We recommend that mentors and mentees feel equipped to refer their mentoring partner for further support, and we recommend that schemes provide all participants with access to someone for mental health referral purposes. Other referrals we often see include referrals to other mentors for skills development. So it's important to build a structure that makes this referral process clear and accessible to all. Issue 6, external interference. The last issue on mentoring partnerships that we're going to cover is external interference. This is most often from the line manager. Upfront clarity on roles is important, and many schemes involve the line managers at the start so that their expectations are also set. We've seen line managers ask mentees about their mentors, as the mentors are often the manager's peers. And we've seen line managers have asked their mentors about their mentees, often curious about the reasons for mentoring, or curious about how the mentee may be referring to their line manager within the conversation. So most interference comes from a place of curiosity, and it's up to both parties to preserve confidence and remind the line manager that it is a confidential, private conversation not to be divulged. I've had one case where the mentor prompted actions from the mentee that opposed what the line manager had asked the mentee to do. This caused a big dispute between the line manager and the mentee, with a confused mentee caught in the middle. This goes back to a communication about roles. The mentor needs to be mindful they are not crossing the boundary into line management, as that is not part of their role. The other type of curiosity often witnessed comes from those outside of the partnership, especially when a wider communication to the business has not occurred. We've seen external parties make assumptions about what is happening and why. Sometimes there is a misunderstanding about the nature of a relationship, that it is a personal one and not work related. But most often it's a belief that the mentee has got an unfair advantage. To combat this, some schemes offer the opportunity to everyone or have an application process to go through. Communication to the whole business is important here to stress what the scheme is trying to achieve, and if anyone is not included, to really clarify why that is the case. So to conclude, we've seen a number of issues arise due to a malfunction at the contracting stage. Having a scheme support and adequate training helps ensure both parties are prepared and expectations are understood. If any rules set within the contract are broken, it's important to revisit these and recontract if necessary. With a build-up of trust and openness, then deep mentoring conversations can get started. If there are any relationship or commitment issues along the way, the partners will be encouraged to try and resolve these themselves, bringing in facilitators only if necessary, and terminating partnerships as a last resort. We recognise the importance of a clearly communicated ending. This can prevent a number of issues like dependency or continuation without purpose, and it can ensure availability of scarce mentors to future cohorts. With such a short webinar, we've only touched on a few of the potential issues today. Before we finish, I just wanted to look at some of the other ways we adapt our training to preempt potential issues. For example, when we're working with hierarchical organisations like the police, we talk about how to handle power dynamics. When we're working with vulnerable mentees, we emphasise how mentors can build psychological safety and trust. When we're working with schemes where the purpose is to increase diversity at board level, then we may focus on case studies from similar schemes so that we can have an open and honest conversation about potential concerns. We've recently been looking at a pilot on reverse mentoring for increasing board level understanding about diversity. The board are choosing diverse mentees from the staff to work with. What's been interesting is that due to the low diversity within the business, only a few individuals meet the specific criteria. So the same people are offering their views to the board. We are now working outside of the organisation to increase understanding of minority groups, as one person's view from within the company is unlikely to be representative of the global group. So some careful planning needed for reverse mentoring schemes. Many of the mentoring clients we have are global, so we do discuss cultural differences. Usually they are a great asset, as one of the key benefits of mentoring is having a new perspective. But we will look at how to understand our own cultural biases and to recognise any areas of cultural difference. For today, I did my own reading about mentoring in the Chinese culture, and I'll quote Yang et al.'s 2011 research into mentoring in China. their research supported the transferability of the mentoring concept and process from Western culture to China. So hopefully today's content has been of relevance to you and your working cultures. Thank you so much for listening. Now I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. Thank you for your wonderful sharing about tricky situations in mentoring schemes and mentoring relationships. Thank you very much for letting us know and pay attention to what could arise in our mentor schemes and relationships. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have several questions from the audience. Yeah, we have collected some of the questions and we have translated, and I will put them in the chat.
Okay.
好，非常感谢我们 Tessa 女士刚才的分享，关于就是在导师辅导计划以及我们导师辅导关系中可能遇到的一些难题以及如何解决。那大家有问题的话，我们欢迎大家现在可以积极的提问，然后我们也会把问题反馈给我们的嘉宾。那在这里我们已经看到了，就是有些朋友提了一些问题，然后我们现在就是请我们的嘉宾然后回答一下。Okay, so the first question. Is there any follow-up tracking mechanism after the mentoring scheme?
Yes, I would suggest that that was a very good idea, and we, in order to keep continuously improving a mentoring scheme, then yes, a continual review is very helpful.
那首先第一个问题比较简单，就是我们在每次的就是导师辅导计划实施以后，有没有相关的这个追踪机制？有，这个是有的，而且也是非常建议的，就是一定要在这个导师辅导计划之后，然后有一个后续的这个评审追踪的一个过程。Okay, then the second question. Yeah, I'll read it first. What if the mentor invests too much time and effort into the mentoring scheme, as it's the first time for him or her to be the mentor, and how to strike the balance between time and effort in mentoring and the time and effort in daily work, because it could be exhausting. 那第二个问题呢，就是如果我们是导师在这个辅导过程当中，他可能因为是第一次，然后当这个导师，所以他可能在这个导师辅导项目上，他就花了太多的时间和精力，可能会出现一个精疲力尽的过程。那如何就是他在导师辅导这个工作方面，以及他日常的工作方面取得一个平衡，一个时间精力上的一个分配上的平衡。
Well, this is a great question, and I think if there's a feeling that it's exhausting and that you're putting too much effort in, then I think the design might need to be reviewed.
这个问题问得非常好，就是如果说你在这个导师辅导过程当中感觉到就是非常的累，那这个时候你就要重新审视一下你们这个可能一个在计划过程当中，或者是你们的关系当中这样一个设计的一个这个设计方面的一个平衡，可能要重新审视一下。
I would normally expect one mentor to have a maximum of 2 to 3 mentees. So, and really meeting up perhaps once a month. So really the investment from a mentor should be an hour, perhaps once a month, with 2 to 3 mentees.
有一个就是比较具体的关于时间和人员上的分配， 就是说一般建议一位导师他可以去匹配可能不止一位学员，那最多的话是建议匹配2到3位学员。那同时呢，这个导师呢每次就是跟这个学员的就是见面谈话的话是频率的话，通常是建议1个月1次这样。
The other thing to say is that actually, one of the things we advise mentors is that they are not doing all of the work, that actually it's the mentee that should be doing lots of investigation and investing in their own development. The mentor is really guiding the direction that the mentee needs to look or investigate further. So hopefully the workload is with the mentee rather than the mentor.
那导师和学员其实在这个时间精力上更多付出的，其实相对应该是学员，因为导师的话更多他是起一个就指导性的角色作用，那学员的话其实是需要花大量时间，然后去观察，去留意自己在这个过程当中取得的进步、取得的发展，以及还有是一些需要改进的地方。那导师呢，就是在应对这个学员的相对应的问题的时候呢，然后再做出相对应的这个指导。Thank you for the answer. And let's see the third question. 大家有问题可以自己的提问，然后我们那个 Zoom 里的朋友也可以提问，可以直接开麦，可以直接回答，或者是把你的问题放在这个聊天框里。The third question, yeah. What if there are no suitable mentors in the organization? Is it possible to seek external mentors? And if yes, where to find external mentors? 那第三个问题是，可能在有的导师辅导计划里，在组织内可能没有找到合适的导师人选，那这个时候该怎么办？是不是可能说我们去寻找外部的导师？那这样的话，就是我们如何去到哪里去找到这样外部的导师？
Yeah, this does often happen. We see it with mentors for CEOs, someone in a very senior role. And we also see it within small businesses as well.
这种情况还是挺常见的，就特别是如果在企业里是针对高层，甚至是我们的 CEO，然后寻找导师的时候，这个可能内部就没有合适的人选，包括很多中小企业在做导师辅导的计划的时候，也是面临这样的情况。我们这个时候可能就要寻求外部的导师。
So in these situations, exactly what you're suggesting is what we do. We seek external mentors. And the mentors that we choose will be based upon the needs of the mentee.
这个时候我们寻求导师呢，主要一个标准，一个就是我们要基于这个学员他的一个需求。
And in terms of where to find external mentors, well, obviously, if you've got a mentee that has a specific need or a skill gap, then seeking mentors with those skills from other organizations can be done. In the UK, we have specific schemes of lots of CEOs from lots of businesses who offer their time to be mentors.
那至于去哪里去找这个外部的导师，是一方面我们刚才提到基于学员的一个需求，然后另一方面就是基于他目前就是能力上的一个不足，就是能力上的他的一个差距在哪里。那我们这个时候就可以就是从其他的一些组织去寻找那些具备这方面能力的人。那在英国的话，其实我们有很多的就是这样的一个组织，我们可以为就是我们的这些高管以及这些重要企业组织，然后提供这样的一个外部导师服务。
So I don't know if you have in China a similar set up where you have mentors that organizations can access?
Actually, not necessary at the moment, because in China, a few companies now have introduced mentoring schemes. Yeah, it's the beginning, but we are trying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are a few global schemes that I can send through, so that you can see that there are some companies that operate globally and offer support globally.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
那我们接下来，然后再看第4个问题。Okay, the fourth question. Could you share a real mentoring scheme case in the company with us? We are curious about how it works. Thanks. 那我们第4个问题呢，就是请我们的Tessa女士跟我们分享一个真实的导师辅导计划案例。这个想很多朋友都会感到好奇。
About how a mentoring scheme works. Well, it's quite complex. If I give an example of a global scheme, then we would typically see cohorts of mentors and mentees applying to be part of the scheme.
这个过程呢，其实相对比较复杂，是我们可以也有很多比较就是可以是在全球范围内适用的一些计划。就是我们在这个计划里，我们有一批导师，然后也有一批学员。
And as part of that application process, the mentee specifies what they want to work on in terms of development, and that informs which mentor they are matched with.
那在具体的应用阶段呢，就是首先是学员他需要一个就是明确他需要在哪些方面得到一个发展，然后呢，我们再基于他的这个发展需求，然后进行导师的匹配。
Then both the mentor and the mentee will be trained in skills and how to approach the relationship to get the best from that partnership.
然后呢，在就是导师学员匹配以后，就开始进行一个培训。这个培训就是同时针对既有针对导师的培训，也有针对学员的培训，就是像他们就是培训一些技能，就是让他们知道如何能够在这段导师辅导关系中，如何让这个想要获得的成果最大化。
We would expect the mentor and the mentee to meet up perhaps once a month for up to normally about 12 months.
那接下来我们就是导师和学员就进入了这段辅导关系。那我们通常建议就是导师和学员见面的频率是1个月1次，然后通常持续12个月这样。
And when this relationship is brought to a close, the mentor then gets rematched with another mentee. And there is a review process where the scheme can learn and grow as well as each of the partners.
那在这段关系就是快结束的时候，我们导师可能就与其他的学员匹配。那我们其实在结束的时候也会有一个就是评审的机制，就是我们来回顾一下，就是这一段导师辅导关系这段计划里，就是导师跟学员他们取得的一个结果，就是取得的一个进步，就是学员他取得的一个进步及发展情况。然后呢，我们从中呢也得出一些经验，包括一些吸取的教训，然后再将它运用到下一次的这个导师辅导计划中。
So although I haven't named a company there, that scheme relates to one of our global clients. That's exactly how it's set out.
那这个刚刚我说的这个过程呢，也是我们就是运用到就是我们的客户身上的，是我们也是一个全球的，就是海外的一家客户一家公司，我们就在这家公司也就是这样走了整个的这样的导师辅导 流程。Thank you for your answer, Tessa. 那么大家还有其他的问题吗？我们中立朋友还有没有要提问的？那么 Tessa 女士她也会就是跟我们分享一下，她就是在做这个导师辅导过程的一个案例。如果各位朋友有感兴趣的话，可以到时候联系我们，然后我们会就是也会分享给大家。I guess I think that's all for today's questions and answers. And if there are more questions, I will get them to you through the email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here to deliver such a fantastic sharing with us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's been wonderful. It's been a great privilege
And
to be here today.
and thank you. And Fisher isn't with us today because he will present at the EMCC conference in Prague.
Thank you.
Yes, he will email you and will appreciate our
Thank you very much.
our appreciation. Thank you. Thank you very much
Okay.
again.
Goodbye.
And have a good time. Have a good rest of the day. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.
拜拜。我们非常感谢我们Tessa女士今天的分享。然后我们整个今天的分享，那么视频回放呢，到时候也会在我们的平台上。然后大家感兴趣的话，可以我们继续关注。那这里我们做一下我们下期的讲座预告。下期的讲座预告是由来自德国的这个 Angel Bregman 女士，然后她给我们带来的话题是教练型管理者必备的技能。然后我们 Angel 女士她是 ICF 德国分会会长，也是 ICF 的大师级 MCC。那本次讲座也是在下周四的下午3点。感兴趣的朋友可以扫左边的二维码，然后报名参与我们这次的讲座。另外，我们在这里跟大家预告一下，就是在本月的24号，然后也就是星期六的下午1点3点，是我们的欧洲导师与教练协会 EMCC 中国的阅读会员开放日。那我们也是为了给有兴趣成为导师、教练和督导的朋友提供一个分享和交流的平台。非常欢迎感兴趣的朋友，然后跟我们一起进行交流。在这里大家会了解到我们导师、教练督导的最新签成果以及相关的这个国际认证。关于这次会员开放日的一个具体的流程以及报名方式，大家可以扫右方的二维码。正好我们提到了这个我们导师的国际认证，我们在这里也播报一下，就是我们的新一期国际认证导师课程将于8月然后开课。感兴趣的朋友可以扫左下方的二维码，然后报名了解。然后我们也提供了一个限时的优惠名额。关于我们这个导师，我们 EMCC 认证的导师，大家可能有的朋友可能有一些困惑，就是我们这个导师跟我们日常可能生活中在学校里那些提到的导师有没有什么不一样的地方？那答案是有的。我们的这个导师呢，他比如说我们有强调五个方面它的不一样的地方。首先，第一个是我们的导师跟学员是在整个过程中的一开始，我们导师首先要帮助学员选对方向，做对事情。因为只有在你明确了方向以后，我们导师才能够 去挖掘学员的这个无限潜能，然后帮助学员去快速有效的达成。那第二个是我们不仅强调一个目标的达成，同时在整个过程中，我们也要帮助学员提升他的一个能量状态。第三个是我们的导师既要帮助学员去激活他一个外在的资源，同时也会激活内在的资源。第四个是我们的这个师傅，我们在导师到最初可能会设定 KPI、KPI 或者 ROI，那这样的指标我们都是可以被有效的计量和比较的。那最后一个也是我们一个特色的一个导师具备的技能，就是组织隐性知识萃取。那懂得隐性知识萃取的这个导师，不仅能够去向学员去传承自己的经验和智慧，还能够去萃取他人的这个技能，然后再传递给学员。那我们这个 EMCC 的国际导师、国际认证导师这个证，它是在全球140多个国家通用的。那我们非常欢迎大家加入我们这个认证导师的行列，让我们一起开启一个没有天花事业。好，今天的讲座我们就先到这里，我们下期再见。好，谢谢大家。